Good morning. Welcome to COVID Science Lesson Section 4 in Cells and Systems. Very timely lesson on disease and scientific contributions to the study of and treatment of several different diseases that we're going to look at. How have advances in medicine helped treat illness and disease? We're going to look at three scientists in particular who have made very significant contributions to the study of disease. First, a quick story. 4 women sat down to play bridge. One, even 3 of them were dead by the morning. A commuter began to cough. He never made it home. One doctor said it was the most vicious type of pneumonia that has ever been seen. Public health departments in America distributed gauze masks as society crumbled. Towns demanded a signed health certificate before strangers could enter. Besides lack of nurses, doctors, and supplies, there was a shortage of coffins, morticians, and gravediggers. Funerals were limited to 15 minutes. Now, this might sound like New York 2020, but it's actually eyewitness accounts from 1918 when the world experienced the worst infectious disease in recorded history. The Spanish flu is thought to have killed about 50 million people. Very timely that we're looking back 100 years to this pandemic. Here we are again. Now, there are some interesting comparisons and contrasts to be made between the Spanish flu and COVID. I think many of the precautions that we might think are overkill right now are in place so that we don't get back to this. This is what a school gymnasium looked like in the great pandemic of 1918, cots lined up head to toe, side by side. I'm not 100% sure if those disease victims are sick or dead. Looks like some of them are still hanging in there. But pandemics like that, when they wipe out such a significant chunk of our population, make us reflect and look and study to find ways to make it better. And we're going to find 3 scientists that made huge contributions to this study. We'll fly through this quickly. You should have some blanks in your notes that you're going to fill in. And these are 3 names that you will need to know. In the 1700s, Edward Jenner created the world's first vaccine. Here's Edward Jenner's story. You can pause there for a minute if you need to copy down his name. Edward Jenner noticed that milkmaids, ladies hired to milk cows, they had been infected with cowpox, a mild and related form of smallpox. They rarely got smallpox. So he concluded that infecting people with cowpox gave them some sort of immunity to smallpox. And so he began infecting people with cowpox on purpose. Turns out this is exactly the theory that proves true when we vaccinate. We actually give your body a weakened dose of the actual virus. That's what we're searching for right now in this COVID pandemic. What is a weakened form of that virus that we can give a patient? Your body battles the virus. It's sort of like it battles a beat down, weak, and sick version of the virus, wins easily, and then develops a strong immunity. Next time your body recognizes that same virus, it's better prepared to fight it off much more quickly. That's how immunizations work. Scientists are working madly to find an immunization that works against COVID. That's what smallpox looked like. That's a patient's leg. Here's Tim and Moby's take on smallpox.
Okay, that's just annoying. I know I'm not supposed to scratch these chicken pox, but they're really itchy. Can't you distract me or something? Dear Tim and Moby, what is smallpox? Is it like the chicken pox? Your friend, Summer. Smallpox is kind of like the chickenpox, only it's more serious. The virus we call smallpox can travel through the air and spread from one person to another very easily. A person with smallpox generally develops a high fever, muscle pain, and sometimes vomiting, and then a rash of little red bumps. These symptoms can take their toll on the body, and smallpox can lead to death. Yeah, lots of people get the chickenpox, but virtually no one gets smallpox anymore. Many scientists believe that smallpox originated more than 3,000 years ago in Africa before spreading to India and China. The virus was so contagious that epidemics swept across continents, wiping out entire populations. 20 or 30% of people infected with smallpox died, and the survivors were left with scars and often blinded. I know, it's a scary story, and a scary virus, but there's a happy ending. Well, in 1796, a doctor named Edward Jenner figured out how to successfully vaccinate a person against smallpox. I'll tell you, he discovered that folks who have had a similar but much less serious disease called cowpox were immune to smallpox. He deliberately infected a test subject with cowpox. When the subject recovered, Jenner exposed him to smallpox. Yeah, right? But it worked. The test subject stayed healthy, and an effective vaccine for smallpox was discovered. In 1967, the World Health Organization began a worldwide campaign to eradicate smallpox. That meant vaccinating people in all parts of the world. The vaccination plan worked, and the last natural case of smallpox occurred in Somalia in 1977. Success was announced in 1980. Right, smallpox was totally wiped out. Today, the only people who have to get vaccinated against smallpox are scientists who study it in specially protected labs. Yeah, there's been some talk that smallpox could be used as a biological weapon, like anthrax was. I hope that never happens, but if it does, the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta will do their darndest to get the smallpox vaccine out to everybody as quickly as possible. Hey, I haven't itched this whole time. Thanks, Moby. I don't think robots can catch the chickenpox. Robot pox? Look, just because there's cowpox, never mind.
Tim and Moby, so funny. Always so entertaining. So that's vaccinations. I'm going to attach a couple of links for you to look at more brain pop videos when we're done. Contributor number 2, Louis Pasteur. Identified microorganisms as germs. He was the first to use pasteurization. There's no surprise that it's called pasteurization because it's named after himself. Tough to identify and describe germs if you can't see them. He was the first to do so and explain that basically those germs can exist in the food and beverages we consume. So one way to kill those germs is to heat that liquid to a certain temperature for a certain length of time before we eat or drink it, and that kills the microorganisms or germs. Pasteurization is the process of heating a solution to kill the microorganisms living in it. Pasteur's first pasteurized solution was wine and beer. Today it's used in fruit juices and milk. And we go back to Tim and Moby.
Moby? Has this gone bad? Thanks. Dear Tim and Moby, does pasteurized milk come from special cows? Sincerely yours, Ella. Nope, pasteurized milk comes from regular cows. Pasteurization means that the milk has been heated up to a temperature high enough to destroy any germs that could make you sick. The heat also destroys enzymes that make milk spoil, so pasteurized milk stays drinkable for a longer time. The process is named for the French scientist Louis Pasteur. During the 1860s, he figured out that wine and beer could be kept from spoiling if they were heated to about 57 degrees Celsius for a few minutes. Eventually, people figured out that the same process could be applied to other foods and drinks, especially dairy, to make them safer to eat and drink. Well, if you milk a healthy cow, the milk will usually be safe to drink. But dairy farms at the start of the 20th century were often dirty, filled with sick cows and sick people. Bacteria often ended up in the milk, making dairy products unsafe to consume. Pasteurization made milk safer, and the United States Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, began to pass laws to require it. By the 1950s, any dairy products that were going to be sold across state lines had to be pasteurized. Like any technology, pasteurization has changed over the years. Louis Pasteur's method involved heating liquids in large vats for long periods, up to 30 minutes. That's called low temperature, long time pasteurization, or LTLT. Nowadays, liquids are usually heated to very high temperature for short times in a process called high temperature, short time pasteurization, or HTST. HTST is better than the old way of preserving the nutrients and quality of food. Well, pasteurization does change the food a little bit, although not everyone agrees on how important the changes are. Some of it depends on how hot the liquid has been heated. The milk that you find at a grocery store might have gone through one of 3 types of pasteurization. Pasteurized milk has been heated up to 72 degrees Celsius for 15 seconds. Pasteurized milk should last about 2 weeks in the fridge. Ultra-pasteurized milk has been heated up to 138 degrees Celsius for only 2 seconds. These liquids can be kept in your refrigerator for up to 90 days. Finally, ultra-high temperature pasteurization heats milk up to 150 degrees Celsius for 1 to 2 seconds. Liquids that have been treated in this way can stay unrefrigerated for several months if they're packaged right. So there you have it, pasteurization, keeping our milk safe and healthy. What do you care? You don't even drink milk. Fine.
So that's Louis Pasteur. On to next. Joseph Lister concluded that surgical wounds were also being infected, started hospital sterilization. Again, hard to figure out how to prevent infection if you can't see the germs that are causing it. But it was Joseph Lister who started very carefully sterilizing hospital instruments before surgery. I'm going to flip through a couple slides and leave you a couple of links. Those are the 3 dudes you need to know to finish up the unit. Here's what I'm going to do for the last slide. There are a couple more videos that I'm just going to link to Moodle. So the avian flu, anthrax, SARS, I imagine maybe there's a brain pop on COVID by now, and a Bill Nye clip on germs. So I'm going to link those videos with the password to brain pop, and that will be on Moodle. And that wraps up, well, it wraps up the unit. We'll be looking forward to unit review next week.